Hey folks, thanks for hopping on. I just threw a quick note in the chat, but we're going to give it another minute or two for folks to hop on the call and then we'll get right down to it. Thanks for joining us. Okay, 12:03. I'm going to call the meeting to order, so to speak. We have some great presenters. I want to make sure that they have plenty of time to share with us today, and that we have some time for Q&A at the end. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. My name is Jason Lessard. I'm the Executive Director of the Alaska Mariculture Alliance. This is a webinar, part of a series that we're doing. We're trying to do every other month a sort of topical or a focused webinar on a particular topic or areas of topics. And then on the opposing months, roundtable with our partner agencies at the state and otherwise to give us quick updates and allow for Q&A. So it's kind of, I guess we're on even months for our webinars and odd months for our partner agency roundtables. Today, we're joined by some folks at both Alaska Sea Grant and GreenWave to give us an update as to some training opportunities forthcoming this year. And I suppose with that, I will just make some quick introductions and we'll let our presenters take the reins here. So first up, we have Missy Good. Missy is the Mariculture Specialist at Alaska Sea Grant Marine Advisory Program, and then we'll be followed by Lindsay Olson, who is the Director of Training and Support at GreenWave. So Missy, if you'd like to begin your presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Great, thank you, Jason, and thanks for the invite and welcome everyone here to this webinar. Just give me 1 second and I will share my slides. All right, as Jason said, my name is Missy Good, or Melissa, and I'm the Mariculture Specialist with Alaska Sea Grant. I am at the Kodiak Seafood and Marine Science Center in Kodiak, where I'm also the coordinator. But as my position as the Mariculture Specialist with Alaska Sea Grant, I do have a statewide position. And I'd like to talk to you just a little bit, very briefly, about what Alaska Sea Grant is, and then we'll go into some of the mariculture training programs we have offered and ones that we have coming up in the future. And this is going to be a pretty brief presentation, but I really just want to provide an overview, and then we can ask questions, have some discussion afterwards, or my contact information is going to be in some of these slides, and I'm sure Jason will provide it, so that way we can have side conversations, emails on what we have coming up, and we'll just let you know where you can find those kinds of things. So Alaska Sea Grant is part of a national network. If you look at the little tiny map on the very top in between who we are in Sea Grant, Alaska, all of those little blue dots, you don't really need to know the names, but that is where all of the Sea Grant offices are within the country. So there are 34 university-based programs. We also have a National Sea Grant Library, a National Sea Grant Law Center, and a National Sea Grant Office. And the National Sea Grant Office is based in DC. And so what we are is a partnership between NOAA and the states. And the mission of all of our Sea Grant programs is to enhance the use and conservation of coastal, marine, and Great Lake resources to create a strong and sustainable economy, a healthy environment, and resilient and inclusive communities. Now, the work that each of the Sea Grant programs does is a little bit different, but we all fall within the same mission. So Alaska Sea Grant, as I said, is a statewide program. However, we are headquartered within the University of Alaska Fairbanks. So we are within the university itself, so university employees. However, a good chunk of our funding comes in through NOAA to provide support for our program. All of the faculty and staff are within the Marine Advisory Program, and we have both specialists and regional agents. And these are in the various communities that you can see here. We do have things changing up a little bit. We don't have a representative in Unalaska currently, but we do have one that just started in Cordova. So we'll have a Cordova dot here soon, and we have other positions we envision hiring. And so our specialists are our statewide agents, and the specialists, as the name implies, means that we all have something a little bit special and focused that we offer. So I'm the mariculture specialist. We also have a coastal resiliency specialist. We now have a fisheries workforce development specialist, a marketing specialist, a seafood technology, processing technology specialist, and an education specialist. Our general agents are located within communities to serve that region. And so each of those agents have a little bit of a different background. They offer a little bit of different stuff because they're really responding to their communities that they serve a little bit more proactively and a little bit more specifically. Oops, sorry, jumping ahead. If you go to our website, alaskaseagrant.org, we have a very nice annual report. It looks like that picture in the center where you can look and get some really good examples of all of the work that we're doing. I mean, it ranges from marine mammal strandings, invasive species, fisheries, workforce development. So it's quite a bit. And it's a lot of good information there. We also have these short fact sheets available online. I'd be happy to send copies out as well if people wanted to see those. But we're here to talk about mariculture. So what's the best way to learn about what we have going on as far as workforce development and training opportunities happen? I would suggest going to our websites first. It's a good way to get an overview of information. Ours is Aquaculture in Alaska. We have it a little bit broader. The web link is at the bottom. Also, we've been recently tasked for the establishment of the Alaska Mariculture Research and Training Center. With the sunset of the Alaska Mariculture Task Force, as we know, the Alaska Mariculture Alliance was stood up, but also the Alaska Mariculture Research and Training Center. And this is not a brick and mortar center. It's more of a coordinating entity to really bring together researchers, industry, and to answer the priority questions that we have to grow our industry. It's also to streamline training opportunities and events. You're going to hear from Lindsay about GreenWave's events. We've got those posted on there as well. So it's not just the university programs, it's not just UAF, but also includes UAS, UAA, GreenWave, and really any other applicable training and education opportunities that we see coming up. So go ahead and visit that site. And on both of these sites, you could sign up for our listserv so then you could get regular emails. And you could always just reach out directly to me. We're really proactive about sending out MailChimps or reminders about opportunities we have coming up. So checking email is really a good way to stay abreast of what's going on. We're also on Facebook as well. If you go onto Facebook, Alaska Mariculture Research and Training Center, we have Jessica Whitney, who's doing a fantastic job at updating everything there. So what does our mariculture program look like now? It's been kind of an evolving thing. I've been in this position for about 3 years now, so we haven't had a mariculture position in the past. Years ago, we did have an aquaculture person who focused a lot on oysters, but I came into this fresh with not really anything happening. So it's really been a response to the industry and what the industry needs are and what we're hearing from the communities. So we started with a partnership group. GreenWave was part of that to offer the first hands-on series of kelp farm trainings. And that was back in 2020, right before the whole world shut down. So that was kind of the first introduction to the state of kelp farming on really a training level. And so that was really a really neat thing to be a part of. We've also offered 3-day workshops on kelp farming, seaweed handling and processing, and business planning, marketing, and processing kind of all lumped together. You can see some fun pictures of students in our classes going through these trainings. But to get into a little bit of the more details. So our seaweed farm trainings, we've done some brief webinars. We've also had these hands-on workshops, as I was mentioning. That was our first series. That was this really big partnership. And then we've kind of narrowed down and expanded what we have internally. We've been working with the Kodiak Area Leadership Institute to offer a series of kelp farm trainings. And each of these trainings were 2-day events that were very seasonally based. So for example, in the fall, we were doing seaweed identification, sorite collection, and then introduction to the sahatchery settings, getting some spores to release. And then in the late fall, early winter time frame, we had the same folks come back. We did farm gear designs, build out, and then deployment. So we're out on the water deploying our mock farm. And then we did some mock seeding as well. We weren't actually putting seeded lines out, but just the lines that you would be using if they were inoculated with seeds. And then in this, we did monitoring webinars throughout the winter. This is all with our partnerships, also Alaska Ocean Farms. They really bring the expertise to these, and then a harvesting workshop in the spring. And we've also done some really intensive 3-day workshops where you go from start to end in 3 days, and it's a full day each day where we sit, listen to presentations, have guest speakers. In the mornings and the afternoons, we really try to get hands-on. We learn about knot tying. We learn about building spreader bar arrays and these catenary arrays. So really having that hands-on aspect and trying our absolute darndest, weather permitting, to get out on the water and really get physical, deploying anchors and getting gear out there. And I don't know when that next workshop will be, but we envision continuing to offer these as long as there's a demand for them. As this industry is starting to go, folks are starting to ask, well, how do I pay for this? How can I fund this? So we did an Access to Capital for Mariculture Businesses webinar series. Each of those webinars, you can see the title for them here on the right-hand side. And then I included the link at the bottom. I'm not going to talk about any of these just because we have only a little bit of time, but we did record all of the presentations and provide the contact information for all of those agencies on our website there. So that's kind of a quick and easy snapshot to go through to see where some potential funders are for you in starting a business or expanding a current business. The seaweed handling and processing workshop. So we've done this one twice now. We do this in the spring. Again, we partner with local farmers so we can go out and get kelp to be in our workshop. And this is all happens at our Kodiak Seafood and Marine Science Center that has a really amazing pilot processing space. This building was designed for seafood product development, and so it's really geared towards these kinds of workshops. So we have people come in and handle kelp and process kelp until it's in a stabilized form, blanching, freezing. We've got some blast freezers here. We're grinding it. And dehydrating. So we kind of do a little bit of all of it. And we really base these workshops off of a manual that we created. And that's the Seaweed Handling and Processing Guidelines for Alaska. We developed this in partnership with Blue Evolution, who's a kelp processing facility here in Kodiak, along with Alaska Ocean Farms as well. Part of this workshop is not only going through the actual physical process of sorting, cleaning, and stabilizing kelp, but it also goes through the regulatory processes as well. So we bring in state representatives, federal representatives, so that folks can understand what the regulatory requirements are. We also talk about food safety, cleanliness. We swab kelps and we try to culture, anything that's growing on them. And so it's been a pretty fun class. This next one coming up is going to be a little bit different, but we'll talk about it in a minute. As I mentioned, the Kodiak Seafood and Marine Science Center is really designed for product development, seafood product development specifically, but we do a lot of testing of other things. We're also a processing authority for the state of Alaska. So if anyone is developing a food product that they then want to sell, often the state will tell them that they need a processing authority letter. So they send a sample to our building, our facility, and then our technology specialists and Brian Himmelblum, I saw in here, absolutely wonderful microbiologist who's volunteering his time, test that product, make sure it's shelf stable, and then can review their processes and then can provide a letter saying, yes, this is a safe product to be sold. Here in the pictures is a really cool example of some products that we've helped with the development of. On the right-hand side is some dried and ground kelp that we did here. And then we sent it to Taco Loco, which is a tortilla company in Anchorage, and they made kelp tortillas for us. And so that was a super cool project and just a great example. And I've also provided here some other examples of products that have been tested here lately and our staff have helped in the development of. So as I said, we're a processing authority for the state of Alaska, and that validation steps for making sure you have a shelf-stable product can include water activity, water phase salts, pH, microbiology, you got any life forms living in there, and really is getting it down to shelf stability. And so we could do all of those different tests here within our labs. Just want to touch on this just so there's awareness of similar courses, maybe not directly related to mariculture that we talk. So here is just our spring list of seafood processing courses that we have going. Seafood HACCP, right now, HACCP is not a federal requirement for processing seaweeds. That may happen in the future. I think on the regulatory level, at the federal level for regulations, they're trying to figure out what it's going to go under, better processing controls or HACCP, but we're already kind of set up because we have been supporting the seafood industry for a very long time now. So we offer HACCP classes, better process control classes, sanitation classes, and smoked seafood school. That's the smoked seafood school has been a very popular course where we teach people basically how to smoke salmon, but you can apply those processes to other things as well. Some of the other courses that we have started to develop are geared more towards the technology and equipment of processing. So we recently started up an ammonia refrigeration training. So we've had 2 series of ammonia refrigeration, seafood processing plants, pretty much all have an ammonia refrigeration system. And so this is a request from the industry on the seafood processing side. Again, could very well cross over to mariculture as it grows. Another one that we're working on standing up right now is a baiter baiter servicing class. So baiter equipment is a brand of equipment that's often used in the seafood processing plants. So we're going to help host some of these baiter equipment technology classes. And then seaweed handling and processing, but we'll talk about the May event coming up, and that one's going to be May 23rd. We have been very fortunate in the sense that I think we're all kind of aware of this, but there's been a large amount of funding that's come into the state to help with the sustainable development of this industry. And really our role as Alaska Sea Grant has been on the workforce development and training side. And so we've gotten some substantial amount of funding through the Alaska Mariculture Cluster, and you could see the logo soup down at the bottom for that, but then also through the state as well, through a mariculture research and development program, and that came from the state of Alaska. That's not just Alaska Sea Grant, but the Alaska Blue Economy Center, the College of Fisheries and Ocean Sciences, UAA, and UAS. We're all working together to develop some streamlined programs that really meet people at their different individual needs for what they want as far as education goes. So nobody's seen this yet. This is top secret. I probably shouldn't share it, but we have developed the Alaska Mariculture Workforce Development Plan. It is almost complete, so I can't share any more than this front cover page. This will be done by the, and it'll be published and printed by the Alaska Mariculture Conference coming up here in 2 weeks. But this really lays out, based upon what we know about the industry, hundreds of interviews went into this, and what we've seen in other places that have growing and burgeoning and even larger mariculture industries, on what we need to do to grow a workforce. So it has 3 goals. Goal number 1, develop a responsive workforce that enables the mariculture sector to become a substantial contributor to the state's economy. Goal 2, guide Alaska's workforce to discover, prepare for a range of employment opportunities in the sector, so looking forward. And goal 3, increase the number of Alaskans working in this sector. We're working with the other universities on this to develop glide path programs. And so we don't have the exact details, whether that's like a micro-credential program, but some way to fit in our short course training programs, which is really what Alaska Sea Grant does, is these short courses. They're not college credited courses, and that design is very specific and on purpose to build into the credited program. So if you wanted to, you could take workshops that then would start building up credits. So then you can go into some of the other academic programs, doing the different credentials as far as certifications, associates, maybe moving those in towards bachelor degree. So we're trying to create a program so we are all working together, and you could take the trainings that are appropriate for your specific goals and needs, and they cross programs. So we're not working in silos individually. I mentioned the Alaska Mariculture Conference. We've been helping to plan this conference along with our partners here for the last 3 years. This is the third one. Hopefully everyone here knows, but this will be February 26th through 29th, starting with the AOA stakeholder workshop, and then the Alaska Shellfish Growers Association annual meeting, the Alaska Mariculture Alliance annual meeting, and then 2 days of presentations, plus the final day, the 29th, which is a Thursday, we're going to have 2 different workshops. So one workshop is going to be offered by the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, and this one's really geared towards shellfish farmers. And it's going to go over the paperwork that's required for getting the shellfish shippers certification and the other various DEC required paperwork. And so that was a request from ASGA that we're meeting. So that's going to be the afternoon on February 29th. And then the Food for Climate League will also be doing a workshop as well. So the brief agenda is posted on our website now. So that is brand new, just got up there. And then the final program won't be out till right before the conference. But the brief agenda, which is on our website, gives quite a few details, including who's speaking and when. So now here's all the things that are coming up after that. And I don't have a lot of information on this slide. Apologies for that. The next opportunity that we have is Oyster Deparation Knowledge Exchange. So we have oyster farmers from Prince of Wales and Cordova that will be traveling to Kachemak Bay to learn about their systems there. This is already closed. We have the participants for this opportunity, but they're going to run straight from the conference down to Homer. So a great example of some of these regional knowledge exchanges that we are supporting and hope to continue to support in the future. Working again with partners, I think everything we do is in partnership, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So I try to include the logos for all of the partners on each of these pages. Apologies if I missed some as you're perusing through and but we'll be hosting an oyster hatchery training. The call for applications has closed. We had an overwhelming number of applicants for this. And so our committee has come together and prioritized participants for this training, though we hope to offer it again probably next spring as well. But so that training is going to be held in Ketchikan, March 26th through 28th. I provided the rough agenda here on the right just for an understanding of what this trainings will all include. An introduction tour of the Oceans Alaska Hatchery. The Oceans Alaska Hatchery is where this training is taking place, but we'll cover oyster biology, anatomy, and life cycles, how to feed them, how to take care of them, this basic husbandry work. Microalgal production, obviously essential. You're going to be growing your algae unless you're shipping all of your feed in to feed your brood stock. Spawning, larval rearing, and so really hands-on in-depth hatchery work. But then we'll also be doing a farm tour visit as well, so we can see those next steps. We could see a large flupsy there in Ketchikan, then go over to a farm. We're going to be visiting the Hump Island Oyster Farm. And that event is closed, but if If anyone's interested in getting word out for those next events, please go to our website, sign up for the listservs. We always send out MailChimps, reminder MailChimps for these applications. Check our social media or reach out to me directly and I can do that for you, and then put you on some lists to let you know, hey, we got something coming up. One of the next things coming up will be in Juneau, April 1st through 2nd. This is Alaska Seaweed Genetics Workshop. Again, a rough agenda here on the right, but this is really going to be a discussion around the seaweed genetics concern in Alaska with our 50-50 rule. I can't really see the participants right now. So for those of you that don't know, in Alaska, if you're going to be a kelp farmer, you're required to go out and collect ripe reproductive tissue from the kelp that you're going to be growing on your farm. And you have to collect from 50 individuals. So ripe source tissue from 50 individuals from within 50 kilometers of your farm site. And so this workshop is going to discuss that and discuss, does that make sense? Are those rules in place make sense currently? Should they be changed? Do they need to be updated? What do we know about seaweed genetics, bay by bay and across species? We have another knowledge exchange opportunity coming up. We'll be going to Scotland to see some seaweed processing over there. This one is in partnership with Connecticut Sea Grant. So we partnered on the East Coast. So they've sought applicants from the East Coast. We've sought applicants from Alaska. And we've been working really closely with the Scottish Seaweed Industry Association to plan this tour. We'll be going to Seaweed Enterprises, Seaweed Processing Facility, and we'll see their operations there. We'll be going to the Scottish Association for Marine Sciences, Seaweed Academy and Nursery. They also have a farm, so we'll be visiting that. We'll be visiting Oceanium. They have a very large scale seaweed dryer. They're doing tens of thousands of pounds a day drying seaweed. So very relevant to Alaska. And then visiting some other seaweed farms along the way and another smaller processor, Eco Cascades. That application period closed yesterday, so we will be finalizing those folks that are going to be able to travel with us today. And again, we had a large demand. We had a lot of applicants for this opportunity, and there is such interest in it. And I think there's a lot of value in exchange of information. And as we keep hearing that, we'll keep applying for funding to be able to host these events. Post-event of the knowledge exchange, we will come back. We're going to have a webinar. Those folks that we are taking with us are being required to participate in this webinar, and we're going to report back what we find. So it's not going to be kept siloed. We want everybody to know this, and then we'll have a nice written report from it as well. So we'll have a webinar that's recorded so everyone can learn what we learned, even if they don't get to be there in that space and time. To the seaweed handling and processing workshop. In the past, this has been a 3-day workshop where we go over kind of everything that has to do with stabilization of kelp. And this one's a little bit different. It's going to be one full day, and it's going to be a processing line demonstration. And this one is pretty specific. It's in partnership with GreenWave as well, so they're probably going to talk about it. Lindsay will probably talk about it. But it's looking at a processing line, a commercial scale processing line that's using what is currently a proprietary stabilization solution. This is with Macro Oceans. Sorry, I forgot my logo soup on the slide, but Macro Oceans has designed a stabilization solution, which they do not want to keep proprietary, but we need to do some trials before they're ready to release it. And so folks will be able to come in for a day, learn some basics of seaweed processing and stabilization, and then get hands-on with this stabilization processing line using a reagent to do that stabilization. And while it's not within UAF, it's UAS, I do want to highlight some opportunities about these courses. I'm not probably able to answer many questions about them, but you can go to their websites here, and Angie Bowers is that contact. But so out of the University of Alaska Southeast Sitka campus, they have semester-long intensives. So you go to Sitka, you live in Sitka for that entire duration. So they have the Alaska Aquaculture Semester that runs August 26th through December 14th. I know the last semester that they did this, it was full, so a lot of demand there as well. They go over oysters and seaweeds, but in addition to that, they also talk about the salmon aquaculture side in Alaska. So they do some salmon hatchery work as well. And then some small boat handling and some other things that are really relevant to working on the water in a maritime environment. So that's coming up this coming fall. They also have Alaska Aquaculture Lab, which is a short and 3-day intensive. And that is going to be April 20th to 30th in Sitka as well. And again, Angie Bowers is the contact. So those are the courses that we have offered, the courses that are coming up, but what else is in the works? We have a lot of things in the works. So right now we're working on a Foundations to Oyster Farming course. I imagine we'll have at least one based either out of Prince of Wales or Ketchikan this coming summer. So that is in the plans. We got to get some of these other things off our plates so we start finalizing that. But we're also working on securing our own equipment so that way we can have those courses here in Kodiak. Right now, the only oyster farm in Kodiak is on the west side of the island, Larsen Bay. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to have a workshop without our own oysters and gear. So we purchased a FLUPSI, a floating upweller system, such as the one in this example in the picture on the bottom right. And we've gotten some oyster cages. We'll be getting more. So Kodiak will be in the works here soon. And then hopefully Southeast. In addition, we have also purchased a mobile kelp hatchery. This unit, the design for it is on the bottom right. Ocean's Design is building that for us. We envision working with the NOAA Alaska Fisheries Science Center at the Kodiak Lab to install that onto their seawater system to start offering some kelp hatchery trainings. We're also working on a mariculture direct marketing course. We have a fishing direct marketing manual, and we are currently in the works of updating that to include mariculture, not just wild harvest fisheries. And so mariculture will be included in that. And then we'll use that information to do probably more of a Zoom-based online direct marketing course. We are just in the final processes of hiring food safety expert here. They'll be here in Kodiak so they can utilize our seafood product development labs. And they'll be offering more mariculture related food safety courses here in the future. It's one of the first things they're being tasked with. We're also finalizing some kelp farming business tools currently. So we'll be hosting some probably short webinar based courses, introducing these tools and how to use them and send them off with folks. And then another shellfish knowledge exchange. This one will be focused on oysters, but likely include mussels as well. This one's being planned for March of 2025, and we'll be taking Alaska farmers and interested folks down to the Pacific Northwest, basing out of Washington, but probably Washington and Oregon visits as well. So we're going to start planning that one. We have funded. We haven't started the details of planning for that yet, but more to come. And with that, I can either take questions now, or Jason, if you want to switch to Lindsay, we could do questions afterwards, up to you. But this is kind of my thank you picture slide. This is all of our work is done in partnership. We have Chris Sanito on the right. He's our seafood technology specialist and really runs the lab sections. Aaron Jones is our mariculture technician, our real hands-on guru. This is on the left. Jenny Renee has been helping out on all of the background stuff. AMRTC wouldn't be up and running if it wasn't for her. Alf Pryor is a farmer and a co-owner of Alaska Oceans Farms. He's in the background telling one of our students what to do. And Lexa Meyer on the upper right is all around a kelp guru, and she's always willing to offer her time to help with these classes. So we wouldn't be able to offer them or have the great in-depth information that we'd have without bringing in our experts.
Great. Thank you so much, Missy, for all the information and all that you guys do to support the industry. I would also add Lexa Meyer is one of the mariculture liaisons under the Build Back Better program, so a good person to get in touch with if you're in the Kodiak area. Yeah, and thanks for the sneak peek at the workforce development plan. Can't wait to see the full plan. So I do want to allow enough time for Lindsay to give her presentations. We'll hold questions till the end, and of course you can always reach out. We'll share contact information, and this recording will be up on YouTube. But without further ado, Lindsay Olson, Director of Training and Support for GreenWave, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason, and thanks, Missy, for presentation. Lots of yeah, great opportunities, and it was cool to hear about some of the things coming down the pipeline. Hi everyone. I recognize a lot of names on the call today, but my name is Lindsay Olson, and I am the Director of Training and Support at GreenWave. I live in Homer, and kind of separately from my work at GreenWave, I also help run a small family kelp and oyster farm called Spinnaker Sea Farms in Catchmack Bay, and so I sit on the AMA board with my farmer hat on. But today I wanted to talk to you with my GreenWave hat on about what resources, programs, and opportunities that we offer for farmers, hatchery operators, and just folks generally in the industry. So for those of you who aren't familiar with GreenWave, we are a bi-coastal nonprofit with a mission to train and support regenerative ocean farmers in the era of climate change. And we do that through these 4 kind of program areas that I'm going to dig into a little bit and tell you the different opportunities that pertain to Alaska specifically. So the first is training and support. That's the program that I run. And if there's like one thing that you come away with today about your sort of association with GreenWave, I would love for everyone to register for our Ocean Farming Hub. This is the sort of our practitioner facing tool. The website is hub.greenwave.org, and I'll drop that in the chat also. But essentially, this is how we communicate with everyone who is actively engaged in the industry about opportunities and events coming up, and where all the discussion happens. And so it's a really great resource, and it includes these sort of 3 main buckets. There are a bunch of different courses that are there that can help you go through the foundations of getting a farm in the water, specifically kelp farming, and then also running that farm. There's an interactive farm design pool that you can use to create a farm design or understand sort of the trade-offs between different gear types for a specific site you're designing for. And then the juiciest part is there is this online community where over 6,000 people have registered to be part of this hub and are on the community, and you can ask kind of detailed questions of the broader community of kelp enthusiasts and practitioners, and people respond. There's been some great chatter this week about contamination issues in hatchery and identifying different types of unwanted algae. So some really great technical discussions. And again, yeah, that all happens by registering for the hub, which is free and takes like 2 seconds. In addition to the sort of static courses that we have online that you can watch anytime, we also offer sort of annual online and in-person programming. We just finished a course called Intro to Kelp that is recorded. If you're interested in sort of a 2-hour crash course intro to the industry, might be a good place to start. Really sort of trying to orient people who are curious about the space, about like what are the different options and how can they get involved. And then coming out of that intro course are these 2 series of webinars and in-person events that we have upcoming this year. So the first one is Farmer Forum, that's directed for farmers and hatchery operators. And the next one is Sea to Sail, which is really our first program, training and support programming that's directed towards folks who are interested in processing and buying kelp. So first, Farmer Forum, we had a call last week on single line array systems. We have one next week. Alf Pryor, who Missy mentioned, is going to speak with his experience using 5-line array systems. The goal of these calls is really just to get farmers together in the same virtual space to ask questions of each other and speak honestly about their experience with different systems, the problems they're encountering throughout the year, et cetera. And so I try and pull folks both from Alaska and the East Coast, but at each topic, just to get some cross-regional perspectives. But there are going to be a couple of really great calls this spring. So I recommend signing up if you're not already registered. Again, if you are a member of the hub, you'll get an email reminder when these events come up, and you can register with this QR code, and I'll put it in the chat. Sea to Sail, like I mentioned, is this new series of really designed to kind of tackle that question of the perennial question of like what happens to all that kelp once it comes out of the water. And our market development team, Sam and Grace, have put together this really great series of events. We had one earlier this week on kelp product development, where we had folks representing companies that create kelp food products, about a kelp biostimulant product, and kelp cosmetic input. And just talking about the different kind of supply chains for those different products and what they're looking for in kelp and the challenges and obstacles they've encountered so far. So some really great new discussion and really detailed information came out of that call, and I'm very excited for the others. So highly recommend you tune into those. So the market development program at GreenWave is really designed to try and sort of alongside the farmer training, create these sort of opportunities for all the different levels of the value chain to speak to one another and really sort of help kind of like move seaweed through that supply chain. We have recently released this new tool to that aim called Seaweed Source. And the way it works is that qualified companies who are actively producing kelp, either kelp seed or kelp, growing kelp, are able to apply. And then anyone who's interested in buying kelp is also able to apply, who has like an established entity. And then this is a sort of platform of practitioners where, unlike the hub where it's open to everyone, with Seaweed Source, you actually have to prove that, or at least on our system, prove that you are involved in the industry. And then it provides a platform for you to directly connect with folks. So I was actually going to give a short demo of this just because I think that it is pretty cool, and everyone, we would love everyone on the call, if you are a participant in the industry, to be part of that. So once you apply to Seaweed Source, you make a profile and you kind of like land on this homepage, and essentially you can see throughout the US and Canada all of the different companies that are participants in this program. And a great way to get to find these partners is by this kind of tab on the left, the Find Partners tab. And you can scroll down and see everyone who has created a profile in Seaweed Source. Just to respect people's confidentiality, I'm just going to show you the GreenWave one. But essentially, each profile will tell you, what that company does. Do they produce seed? Do they grow seed? Do they buy kelp? Do they sell kelp? Do they co-pack kelp? And then there's like more information about it. And up here, there's the send message button. So you can send a message directly to the person at that company that has interest in selling or purchasing kelp. And this will send the message from your email that you're registered with. It will go directly to their email inbox, and then all future communication will be via email. So it's a great way to get in touch like with the right person at the company that you're looking to talk to. So that's like one really cool aspect. The other one is this listings page. So if you are a farmer who maybe planted kelp with a buyer in mind, and that buyer fell through, and you have a lot of kelp that you need to move, or you are a buyer that's looking for a specific type of kelp in a specific region, you can create a listing on this listings page, looking to sell, looking to buy, if you're offering a service like co-packing. And once you create that listing, you fill out the information and you publish it, it will send an email to everyone who's registered for Seaweed Source. So your listing will go out to all of those 70 companies that are participating in the tool. So it's just a really great way to sort of like short circuit those connection points, get your message across to the people who need to hear it. And yeah, we'd love for there to be more Alaskan companies on board. Okay. So going back to the other things we offer, this is the Kelp Climate Fund, which is a climate subsidies program for all active kelp farmers. So if you are an active kelp farmer in Alaska or elsewhere, and you're growing more than 1,000 feet of kelp, we are able to help kind of subsidize your operations and pay you for the climate benefits of your crop. And we do that by providing $1 per foot of seed string planted on farms up to $25,000 per farm per year. We've got 50 participating farms this year, earning over $500,000. And the way the program works is that we've sort of built this app that allows you to track data through growth samples of your kelp on your farm. It'll give you an overall growth curve throughout the year of your farm history, and then you can look back through those curves at that data year over year. And then it will estimate the potential carbon and nitrogen removed from the kelp that was grown on your farm. So if you're an active kelp farmer and you're not part of the KCF, you should totally apply. Okay, I am going to talk briefly about some of the infrastructure work that we're doing, which is kind of new to GreenWave and that I think pertains specifically to Alaska. But I know that I won't leave enough time for questions, so I'll zip through it. But essentially, farmers play one role in the seaweed value chain, but there are lots of different players, as we all know, that all have to make money in order to make a profit and make this industry work. GreenWave's vision is that farmers themselves could control more of those different activities and therefore earn more value for the kelp that they're selling. And so specifically, we are trying to come up with innovations in the infrastructure space that could really help farmers retain more value on the seed supply side of the industry and the stabilization side of kelp farming. So first, with seed supply, folks are seeing kind of across different regions a lot of challenges around the availability of source tissue. On the East Coast, that's a big problem. I know it's not quite as big a problem in Alaska, but contamination across nurseries is, and dealing with different unwanted aspects of your nursery that impact your quality. The cost for seed production is really high in comparison to the overall price point that farmers are able to get for their kelp. And so GreenWave is kind of trying to noodle with this and figure out ways to help reduce those costs, create more efficient systems and more reliable quality. And our first sort of innovation was this redesign of the nursery system that we had historically been running. We partnered with a company called Hortimar in the Netherlands that and really sort of took a lot of aspects of their design to create this sort of 20-foot shipping container model that uses a third of the footprint of the original design, but grows twice as much kelp with half as many people using a third of the energy. So much more efficient, much cheaper, and we think could be a really great model for groups of farmers in rural areas because you could ship it out in the shipping container model. There is a hub course that we just published about kind of walking you through how to build this system. And so that is a great resource if you're interested, or you can reach out to me and I can get you in touch with the right people. We're also going to host a webinar specifically about this style of nursery cultivation in March. And then the second solution around seed is really thinking about gametophyte seed banks and sort of trying to decouple in the kelp life cycle the spore release phase and then the nursery cultivation phase, and provide more opportunity for farmers and hatchery operators to have control over the timing of when they produce seed spools for farmers, and then also control contamination in the nursery system. And so there are definitely lots of details here, but the sort of big picture view is that we have been able to kind of create these gametophyte seed banks in Connecticut, and we think that they could be really helpful to support farmers in Alaska as well, and are interested in transferring that technology. Just to kind of give you a visual of why we think this is important, this is some of the results that we've seen on the GreenWave farm comparing traditional sporophyte seeded lines versus a gametophyte seeded line. And again, the main benefit that we see is just an ability to get kelp in the water much earlier. And so you just get a bigger nutrient bump in the fall. The kelp seems to grow a lot bigger and more voluminous. And this is that same kelp in comparison at the harvest time, where we saw several pounds more per foot on average. And although these results are definitely kind of relative, every farm site is going to perform differently, we did see consistency that the gametophyte spools outperformed the sporophyte seeded spools on both GreenWave farm sites. So that gives us a lot of hope and optimism that this could be an important kind of step in improving hatchery production. And then the last part of the infrastructure piece that I want to talk about is stabilization. Missy mentioned that we are collaborating with Sea Grant on a demonstration this coming spring, but you all know that stabilization and the ability for farmers to have a reliable way to get their kelp to market is a huge challenge and bottleneck in the industry. And so our solution has been to partner with companies that are looking at ambient temperature stabilization. And so we worked on a pilot with Macro Oceans last year in Connecticut, and then we got funding through the FDF Joint Innovation Project to replicate that in partnership with Sea Grant and Cali and Alaska Ocean Farms this year in Kodiak for the seaweed handling demo that Missy spoke about. And the idea here is really to take kelp that was grown in Kodiak, mince it up, add in a slurry, add in that proprietary reagent, and then ship it to California, where Macro Oceans will turn it into their whatever product they choose to use. The applications for this are still open, so really encourage everyone to apply. And then what's next in Alaska? There's some, this is some of the things that we have kind of going on the back burner, looking at a farmer mentorship program. Again, that seed bank, nursery and replication, interested in working in different parts of the state. Been in touch with some folks in Kodiak, but would love to speak with others in Cordova and Southeast. Really trying to support and double down on the market development support for buyers who are looking to get into Alaska. We've been working specifically with a couple companies that are interested in purchasing kelp from Alaska, but are intimidated. And so we're trying to help connect all the dots. We're interested in helping support farmer cooperative development. And we're part of an organic certification working group in partnership with Evie Witten at Regenerative North that's really looking to kind of try and consolidate a uniform set of guidelines for organic certification for seaweed farms. So yeah, please feel free to reach out with any questions about that. Then this is just an aside, but I wanted to give a quick PSA for all the farmers in the room that we've been in touch recently with the Farm Services Agency at USDA in Alaska. And one really cool opportunity that I feel like is going unutilized in the state is this rural transportation reimbursement program that basically will reimburse seaweed farmers for any shipping for a percentage of their shipping costs to get any gear in state or their finalized product out of state. So I have the rates here listed based on your location. But essentially you apply over the summer months, and then you submit your receipts for the year that fall and the previous year, and you can get this reimbursement. So a great opportunity, and I've got a link for that I'll share as well. Okay, I zoomed through that, but happy to answer any questions along with Missy. And here's my email. Please feel free to reach out if anything struck your fancy.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. I think we'll be reaching out to USDA to give a presentation on that program. I think that would be really worthwhile for everybody to learn more about. Thank you again to both of you, to your organizations. I really love not that you're just providing training, but that you both really seem to foster a collaborative spirit towards approaching this industry and fostering and sharing of knowledge. And you don't see that a lot in other industries. And I think it's pretty special. So thank you for all the work that you do towards that. At this point, I guess opening up the floor for questions that anybody might have for our presenters. And there's been some useful links being shared in the chat. Make sure you're checking up on those and cutting and pasting. Again, we will put this recording up on our YouTube page, and we'll have an email that follows up with a link to that, as well as contact info. And maybe we'll even pull out some of these useful links that are being shared in the chat as a follow-up email to all of this. We've got about 5 minutes left in our allotted time. I didn't see anybody's hands come up with any questions. Oh, I see one. Rebecca Anderson. Hi there.
Hey, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. Well, a lot of information here, a lot of work definitely has been done, and it's really exciting that there's so much support for this budding industry. My question is, how would one sort of make a decision about what a viable hat to put on in this would be? It just seems that there's so many avenues. What are some good guidelines, or are there some resources that either of you have available to help determine, where you could best shine in this process? And just a little sidebar, we have a permit in Sheep Bay, Prince William Sound, but it hasn't been actively used. There were some changes that made our original intentions with the collective not be able to follow through. So we're sort of at a crossroads. How do we intersect with this juncture of the industry development? And there is a lot of educational information, but there's so many different specialties. What would help decide where one's focus could be best had?
That's a hard question, right? That's a really hard question. And I think, I think personally it gets down to, what are you going to be passionate about? All of this is a lot of work. And whether that's hard physical work, or it's hard work in making connections with who your buyer's going to be, but what's going to make you want to wake up every day? Do you want oysters on your farm? The nice thing with oysters, the difficult thing with oysters is it's a really hard initial investment. And so getting capital for that is much higher than if you want to start a kelp farm. But we know that there's readily available markets out there to sell oysters. And so you can have, as long as you could do your groundwork, you could find a readily available market. Kelp, it's a lot less infrastructure. You can have a product that you can grow within 9 months or less, could be much less, we're finding out. And then you have a lot of kelp there, and people have been mostly successful, finding good sites to grow kelp. But can you find a buyer? Is there a buyer in your area, for that? Or do you want to take on the extra steps of processing it yourself and then developing your own markets as you go? I think right now that, we talk about the biggest barriers to the kelp industry is the processing, but then markets, and what markets are going to come and what markets are we going to be able to access. So right now it's such an exciting but experimental stage, and seeing what's going to stick. And so, sorry, those are not great answers, but maybe just some things to think about.
No, I think that's a great answer. I mean, combining your passions with with your strengths that you might already have, and I think pragmatic approach to what potential is out there. And it seems like right now with such a nascent industry, there's opportunities to go in just about any direction. And sometimes that can feel overwhelming. So a lot of these trainings that we're on here, I know that Lindsay just threw something up in the chat, as well as Missy was talking. These I think would help narrow down some of these questions that you might have, and engaging with other farmers. I don't know if you've been able to register for the conference or attend the conference here. It's happening in Anchorage soon, but there is, as I mentioned before, a good collaborative spirit, I think, right now in Alaska. And so touching base with some other folks about what they've got going on and so on and so forth would be helpful as well. Lindsay, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Rebecca, I threw a link in that might be helpful for you to answer this question, but I think, yeah, definitely talk to other folks in the state, and everything that Missy said was great.
Great. Well, we've hit 1 o'clock. Oh, sorry, Rebecca.
Oh, you're muted.
That helps me give an idea about connecting the dots and seeing what opportunities are out there and how you could intersect with those. So, thank you.
Yeah, and I will say one of the nice thing about the workshops that we're currently offering is we have travel funding for pretty much all of them. And I don't know, I think we have a couple more years of being able to offer workshops with full support as far as travel funding goes. So it is kind of a nice time. We don't give stipends if you're, for your day, like for having to take time off of work, but we cover, airfare and lodging and a per diem. So it's kind of a nice time to take advantage of what is being offered. So I would say, just putting in applications for these different workshops that seem of interest to you. And, there's a potential for other species as well, right? We're just starting to think about that and dive into that. Can we do mussels or abalone or sea cucumbers? And so it's kind of an exciting time and overwhelming. Right now, we're working on the back end on our Alaska Mariculture Research and Training Center website. We're building out a library, and that library is going to be peer-reviewed journal articles, but also technical manuals. So we're kind of just like sourcing out to the world to see what kind of manuals we can find on different species and just trying to put them in a spot. And so I think that hopefully will be a good resource for folks too here in the future. We're hoping to have the library up by the conference, but we have some delays, so it might not be.
Great. Well, thanks for the question, Rebecca. We've passed the 1 o'clock mark. I understand if folks need to go. Last call on questions if our presenters are okay with taking one more. Otherwise, we're going to call it. I didn't see any hands come up. So thank you again to Lindsay and Missy and everybody for joining us. Look out for future webinars. And Rebecca, feel free to reach out to probably anybody on the call, any of us from AMA, GreenWave, Sea Grant, about if you had any further questions. So thank you again, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Thanks, Jason and Jenna.
Thanks.